Welcome to Influential Entrepreneurs, bringing you interviews with elite business leaders and experts, sharing tips and strategies for elevating your business to the next level. Here's your host, Mike Saunders.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Influential Entrepreneurs. This is Mike Saunders, the Authority Positioning Coach. Today we have with us Luke DePron, who's the founder of the Live Great Lifestyle. Luke, welcome to the program.
Mike, I appreciate you having me and looking forward to spending some time with you.
Yes, I am looking forward to learning how to live great and make that a lifestyle because, as you know, the word diet starts off with the first three letters, D-I-E, and nobody wants to die. It's all about a lifestyle. So I love your approach. I love how you dial in for entrepreneurs, business owners. But before we get into that, give us a little bit of your background and your entrepreneurial journey up to this point in your career.
Sure. So originally a Midwest guy who went to school for kinesiology, was originally studying for business and realized, man, and sitting in an accounting class, I do not like this stuff. And I made the shift into the kinesiology department where I graduated with a degree in exercise science. And then from there, I've done everything from performance work with athletes all the way up to the Olympic level, to personal training, to working in rehab studios, to kind of full circle where I'm at now, where I work with entrepreneurs, business owners, CEOs, and really help them optimize the fitness, nutrition, the lifestyle side of things so that they can excel on those bigger goals of building the business without having to sacrifice their health and wellness.
That's so huge. And I know that I really, in marketing, I really applaud targeting and picking a niche. And you could have picked health and fitness for fill in the blank, right?
Sure.
Sports athletes or amateur athletes or professional athletes, but you picked business owners, entrepreneurs, leaders. What was it that made you think that's the niche to work on?
You know, as I was working on my business, I was, parts of masterminds. And as I started to surround myself with other people in the trenches working on building their businesses, these were the guys that I worked with. And I'll point out, I do specifically work with men, but any women listening to this, the content will still be relevant to you. And these were the guys that I was surrounding myself with that were, in the trenches of building their businesses across a multitude of different arenas. And so these kind of became the clients. And obviously there's some unique perspectives and challenges that come with building a business that can impact your ability to focus on your health and fitness. So it was really just who I was surrounded with and who I was able to start helping, and then identifying some of the specific challenges that they were having and helping them overcome it, and kind of grew into the practice that I have today.
I love it. And it's kind of like you sit up and you notice, oh, all of a sudden I started doing a whole bunch of clients who are engineers. Let's just dive in deep there. So you just noticed that you started doing good work with entrepreneurs, and typically male, like you said, if you're female, this principles still apply. Here's something as a male entrepreneur myself, you probably get this a lot. Dude, I just don't have the time.
Yep.
What do you say then?
Number one objection for sure. So the first thing we have to step into is with the belief, and this does take a little bit of a leap here, but you have to step into the belief that if you are working at a higher degree personally as a physical vessel, meaning if you are healthier, if you are more fit, you are going to be a higher producing person, period. And I hate to use the old car analogy, but like a broke down car versus a car that's optimized is going to take you further. So in the world where we are trying to optimize our marketing and landing pages and our other people down the line, our employees, ultimately as the leader, you need to show up as your best physical self, because you're going to sleep better. You're going to have better energy. You're going to have better focus. So ultimately, the small amount of time that it does require, you're actually buying it back from a productivity standpoint.
I agree with that 1,000%. I noticed that myself. And what would you say to someone like, okay, when you start getting those positive results, that's going to be motivating to you, self-motivating, but you don't get those, like the runner's high or the second wind, or you don't get that day one. Like actually, if you've not been working out consistently, maybe even day 1, 2, 3, or 4, it doesn't feel too good. So How do you get them past that hump?
Yeah. So no question. And this is obviously where, the buy-in on the front end, and then having support and accountability. But yeah, you are pushing into a future potential, and you're right. At first it's going to be tough. So this is where we kind of shift our focus from the outcomes, and we start looking at trying to maintain standards. We set clear weekly objectives that we're going to hit. these, I call them guaranteed minimum standards, which for every entrepreneur, we always scale it back. And now it starts to become a focus on congruency. Now we're just playing a congruency game until those good feelings start to show up, to where all of a sudden the self-motivation will come, because you're like, why wouldn't I do this? I feel good. But we pull it back and we really start to kind of play the game of, hey, this is just a congruency test. Are you a guy who's going to do what you said you were going to do?
And depending on the type of leader or entrepreneur you are, that could motivate you in and of itself. Like, well, of course I am.
Yes.
You know, I do what I say.
Exactly. Yeah. So we
And
lean
maybe
into
that becomes that becomes part of your way of learning how to motivate your clients, is just kind of assessing how they are motivated. Like, as an example, if you're a boss and you want to motivate your employees, is giving someone more money more motivating than time off, and it's going to be different. So how do you determine when you're working with clients what their motivators are?
Ultimately it's obviously asking questions and see, like, why is this important to you? Because, when I get on a call with somebody to see if we're a good fit to work together, you do have to have some internal drive to do this. I tell people, I'm not a cheerleader, I'm an optimizer. I can help simplify this process. I can make it more clear cut. I can, hate to use the word shortcut it, but I can, put up some guardrails and make this a more simplified process. But ultimately you're going to have to step up, grow as an individual, and do the work. And we do have to determine, like, what is the core motivation? Working with specifically business owners, I hate to say it, like, for a lot of guys, like, their business is their core motivator. Now, for somebody else, it might be like, hey, being a dad. And if we can tether that outcome of being a higher performer physically to whatever our big goals are, then that motivation will start to kind of grow naturally. So as an example, if I do have somebody who's a dad, and it's like, cool, man, like, what kind of dad do you want to be? And I'll really twist the knife with them and say, okay, are you going to walk your daughter down the aisle, or is another man?
Yeah.
And when you start to really believe in that, hey, I'm not going to be able to show up as the dad that I want to be in my current state. Now we've got a deep anchor, or what I call a big why. And I do have an exercise that, guys have to watch and do a quick little worksheet, takes them 5 minutes to kind of really build out, like, what is the real reason that you're going to do this? Because ultimately, needing to lose 20 pounds or 40 pounds, great. That's not probably going to get you through. But if you can understand that, wow, man, I'm going to show up differently in my relationships, differently in my business, and the things that are actually really important to you, then you're going to see it through.
Well, it then gets down to crash diet, yo-yo diet, whatever you want to call it. But, the DIE part of that word diet,
Sure.
because anybody can go lose that 10 or 15 pounds. It's really simple math. If your metabolism takes X number of calories, then don't eat that many, eat this many less, and you're going to lose weight or burn some more. It's really simple. But guess what happens? You starve yourself and deprive yourself for a certain amount of time. And then, I check that box, and then boom, you rebound right back, if not worse. So you're exactly right. You need to take that minute to sharpen the axe ahead of time to figure out the why, because you don't want to feel pushed. You want to feel pulled and motivated. And what is that why? Maybe it is, I want to be the first person in my family to, or maybe it is, I want to have that extra pep in my step. But once you figure that out, now all of a sudden it's like, okay, you don't need to have the wake up call and remind and the accountability. Those things are helpful, but I think the why behind it is just the genius.
Yep. And once you get that going, and somebody like yourself, Mike, who's on the other side of this, who's actualize these things, you'll start to realize, and as you know, once you've seen it through and now you start to feel good, it's like, why wouldn't you do this? Why wouldn't you eat this way? Why wouldn't you move this way with your body? Because now there is real positive reward and return on that investment. But at first, you're right, we're gonna have to pull through with some deeper core motivation to get it going.
So obviously you have gone through certifications and trainings and come up with your own system. So talk a little bit about your framework. Your 3-step framework.
Yeah. So I can really simplify it down to, 3 steps. And within these 3 steps, we're obviously going to optimize the heck out of it. But it really comes down to build, fuel, and move. So in the build phase, we're basically going to install a minimum effective dose resistance training program. And this serves a couple purposes, where we are trying to mitigate muscle loss or maximize muscle gain from a body composition standpoint. And when I say minimal effective dose, this is going to be based unique on your specific lifestyle and your capacity to integrate it. So for some guys, it's like, who are like really time strapped, it's like, we're not going to the gym. Are you kidding me? We don't have time for that. So we're going to, invest in some adjustable dumbbells, and we do the workout at the office before we leave. And, we'll make it work. And of course, all of these things are going to be tweaked along the way. And that's kind of a big part of what I do. And then the fuel side is we obviously have to optimize what we're eating. And you mentioned earlier, basically a caloric deficit. And yes, that is going to control your weight loss. But that telling people that is pretty much the equivalent of saying to save more money, you need to spend less, and doesn't really give you any tools to do that. So we're really keen on helping men install custom nutrition that's built around the foods that they actually enjoy. And this is how we avoid that crash diet. We want to have very specific outcomes that we're targeted for, because there are targeted rates of fat loss that are going to be more optimal and more sustainable. So at the end of the 3, 6, 9, 12, whatever it is, if you can't maintain it, it was an absolute waste of time, and we integrated incorrect strategies. So on the fuel side, it's bringing in a nutrition plan that's built around foods that you actually enjoy and make you feel good. Like, what a crazy concept. So you don't have to do, you don't have to go keto. You don't have to cut out all your carbs. You don't have to do juice cleanses. Like, you don't have to do all this craziness, which is what most guys and gals want to dive into. Yeah. And then the last piece is we need to move. And the move phase is actually kind of challenging for people, but we want to stimulate caloric burn through what we are going to call non-exercise activity thermogenesis, basically low-level movements. So we're not going to go put you on the treadmill. We're going to first see, how do we add into our day before we add on? And adding in could be something as simple as, hey, when you're on sales calls, let's get you up, put your headset in, let's have you pace around the office. And believe it or not, these small little things, when brought together, all of a sudden you have a really manageable lifestyle approach to fitness that doesn't really take up a ton of time, but gives you a massive return on that investment.
Yep. I love it. You had mentioned, did you mention MEP? Am I remembering that correct?
So move, fuel, build, fuel, move.
No, but it made me think of like in the book, The Lean Startup, they talk about the MVP, the minimum viable product, meaning
So,
just do the basics, just get something started and then tweak and improve from there. So what you said made me think about, don't jump into the 6 day a week, 2 hour a day workout routine. That might not ever be feasible or necessary. Just start slow and then build slowly from there.
Yep. And it goes beyond the psychological side of, hey, let's not bite off more than we can chew. Ultimately, we want to save physiological leverage. So it's so funny when I get on calls with guys, I'll ask them on an intake form, how many days realistically can you dedicate towards specifically exercise, not the other stuff? And I can't tell you how many guys come back and say 7. And it's like, cool, how'd that work for you last time? Yep. And so we're always going to scale it back. And again, we set, minimal guaranteed standards. So nothing can come up, no business meeting. We're going to hit these minimum guarantees. We're going to hold that standard. Then over time, we'll raise it. But the idea is we do want to save that leverage. We don't want to pull all of these physiological levers, which this is what most guys do. They diet hard. They're going to work out crazy. They're going to add sprints. They're going to, they're motivated guys. These are guys who have built big companies. So they do have this ability to hunker down and do the work, but you will not outwork.
Can it be sustained?
Right. Yeah. Can it be sustained? And is it physiologically more impactful? And for most guys, it's actually going to be not. So we want to save that leverage and strategically pull that as needed.
And pull it as needed in a sequential, strategic way. And where I'm going with it is what I'd mentioned a minute ago, which is like, ultimately, we want you to be working out this many days a week and this long per workout, but not today. This is day 1, because we don't want to, throw you in and now you're so sore you can't even get up. So now you're just going to throw your hands up. So I think that that's a huge piece of things is leveraging yourself and knowing yourself, right? So doing kind of that slow. Here it makes me think of something else too. The obvious reasons why you work out are what? Gain weight, lose weight, gain all the normal things. But I would suspect that you have found that there are some metrics and some results that people get that aren't that down the beaten path. And where I'm going with it is this. I was listening to an old Tony Robbins recording this past weekend, and he was talking about how the majority of like 85% of your emotions are based on motion, meaning to change your state, get up and do. I don't know, do 10 jumping jacks and just get your blood pumping. So talk a little bit about how when you work out and you adjust your diet, you're gonna experience those things that you want, like, maybe a trimmer waist and maybe a little bit more energy. But what about from the emotional standpoint? What about from the outlook on life? Maybe you're just kind of waking up and you don't hit the snooze. What are some of those other things that people don't think of that are results?
Yeah, man, you're hitting the nail on the head of the stuff that excites me. So, ultimately when somebody comes to me, if they want to lose, 30 pounds, great. That is exciting to see them actualize that. But what is really lights me up as a coach is seeing people try to quantify like what it is to feel really good, to wake up and like, man, I got like a pep in my step. And like, that's exciting to me. On the emotional side, you're right. As far as we can use our physiology to impact our psychology. And, if we're dealing with stress and anxiety and you haven't pulled the lever of leveraging your body to deal with that, particularly again, as a business owner who's in the trenches, it's like, man, you got some low hanging fruit right there that will radically transform how you manage stress, how you deal with anxiety. I mean, this is all obviously documented. That's like probably one of the best things that you could do. So that's the stuff that to me is really exciting, is when somebody's trying to convey to me how good it feels to feel good, because it seems like they really can't describe it, but they're well aware of the ramifications of taking ownership, really.
Well, they need to realize how good it feels to feel good. And that only happens when they're sick and tired of feeling sick and tired, right?
Yep.
It's like those little cliche things, but in reality, you can probably lay out a routine that works like a charm with client A and show client B that, and they're like, okay, that's cool. Yeah, I get it. The reasons, but until someone gets to the point where they're like, okay, this is it. I've tried this and that and the other. It's not worked. My time is now.
Yeah.
Right. That's typically when they are going to be the most receptive. So, just like with any relationship or decision, sometimes you're going to start communicating with someone before they've made that final decision, right? Like, okay, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. What are some of the things that you provide people from your website or from an educational standpoint to help them kind of reveal those things? Like, oh yeah, I do want that pep in my step, and I do want those like ancillary things. What are some of those helpful educational things that you provide?
That's an interesting question. On social media, I really am adamant about trying to actually deliver value in my content. So I do think I'm doing a pretty good job in that sense. I've also hosted a podcast with 80 or 90 expert interviews. It's called the Live Great Lifestyle, and highlighting people who have kind of had that. So yeah, that's an interesting question that I'm gonna have to ponder that one yet a bit. It is something that again it's hard to articulate for people, and the best way to maybe highlight it is to say, like, envision when you are sick or hungover, because most people have been there, and then you really begin to appreciate what it is to be healthy. And I think if you haven't again optimized your nutrition, your exercise, and again a lifestyle that's kind of I don't want to say built around that, but integrates that, there's another degree that you simply haven't, or another gear that you haven't tapped into, and you really won't know what it is until you get there.
That helps people turn the light bulb on to make them come to that decision on their own, that change must happen and change must happen now.
So I do think you have to highlight, where are you maybe not showing up? And again, this could be in the relationship side. You may find yourself, again, if you're a dad and you're like, yeah, my kid wants to like go out and throw the ball, but I'm too tired. And like, that's a big slap in the face. I had a guy on my podcast who, he went to chase his kid at the park and he had a heart flutter, and he realized, holy cow, he's like, I might not be here for my 3-year-old or my wife. And he went on to lose 200 pounds. This is a childhood friend of mine who was morbidly obese his whole life. And so he needed that big core driver. Again, for somebody else, it could be a health scare, and they realize like, man, I'm not going to be able to see this business through. So it really is, I think, anchoring it to whatever is the most important thing to you. And again, I hate to say it, there's a lot of guys that are going to choose business over family sometimes, it seems like. And if that is your biggest value, you got to tether the idea that you working better physically is going to have massive ramifications in that business. And if you can tether that idea, then it becomes easy to, I think, make those steps forward.
And what if you start sensing from this client that they are just competitive, right? And they want to just crush the competitor. Maybe some of the thought process could be, do you want your business to kind of like default back to your competitor one day? What if you drop dead? And what if your employees don't take over the business and your competitor just buys you out? Wouldn't that just, gall you?
You're right.
And so it kind of reminds me of the gamification of setting goals. Like, okay, I'm gonna pay $100 into this app, and if I lose my weight, I'm gonna get the $100 back. Or if I don't lose it, then I'm gonna gift it to this charity that I don't really want to support. So it motivates me. You've got to figure out what drives yourself so that you can self motivate yourself. And I don't care whether it's like, oh, I love coffee, so when I get that workout done, I'm gonna have an extra cup of coffee, or whatever the case is. You've got to figure out what's going to drive you. And if it's family, like the friend in the park with the kid, if that's what drives you, good. If it's business, then use that as the carrot to drive you to hit those goals.
Yep. And I tell people there's nothing wrong with leaning in and leveraging a little ego in the beginning. At the end of it, again, you will eventually be pulled through from positivity to where, again, when you're like, I just feel good, I wake up, I have more energy, it becomes a non-negotiable for yourself, because why would you not do something that makes you feel incredible? So, but to get there, if you got to leverage a little of the ego, and even if it's like, hey, you're a physical representation of your business. So is this the physical representation that you want to put forward? Like
100%.
You got to look at that as well.
Well, Luke, I love your approach. I love your mentality of fitness and how you apply it to entrepreneurs, business owners. If someone is listening to this going, okay, where can I learn more? Where can I connect with you? What's the best way that they can reach out and connect with Luke?
Easiest place is to just go to livegreatlifestyle.com. I have a free training there that actually does educate you on this. It's not just some big sales pitch. And they can check that out. It will break down that build, fuel, move concept a little bit more, and you can kind of see how this could be integrated into your unique situation. So that's at livegreatlifestyle.com.
I love it, Luke. Thank you so much for coming on today. It was a real pleasure talking with you.
Mike, my pleasure.
You've been listening to Influential Entrepreneurs with Mike Saunders. To learn more about the resources mentioned on today's show or listen to past episodes, visit www.influentialentrepreneursradio.com.